Hi everyone, let's talk about the Nexus 5 and Android 4.4 camera. Now, I've had about 24 hours with the camera, been taking a few pictures indoors, and one of the things I found quite interesting is the low light performance isn't actually that bad. I was expecting the low light performance indoors in not ideal lighting conditions to be pretty dire, but actually the optical image stabilization on the lens makes a big difference. For my mind, the images feel a little bit soft. Now, that might be a choice that Google made so that they could apply sharpening later within their Google Plus services, as it were. But for my mind, it does require just a little bit of extra sharpening to the images. They are very, very soft, especially when put against something like HTC One or the S4, where the images have a real kind of pop and clarity to them. Now, it's an 8 megapixel shooter with optical image stabilization, as I say, which probably places the camera around sort of the mid-range of last year's models, the 2012 models, though I'm not completely sure what sensor they're using in here. Overall, colour reproduction, pretty good. Not the best out there. It does require a little bit more saturation in my opinion. And unfortunately, I do not like the stock camera app. I find it just far too limited, I'm afraid. We do have now access to HDR+, which doesn't work particularly well in my opinion. It's far too slow at taking images to the point where you're able to just introduce just a bit of shake, or even think that it's actually finished taking its series of images when it hasn't. Overall, I found the camera to just be a little bit on the laggy side. The time delay between hitting the button, feeling the image actually click through and render is just a little bit agonizing, especially when you come from something like the HTC One or the S4 with its burst modes. This doesn't have burst mode, and I'm not even sure if burst mode would work particularly well, given how slow this lens seems to, the camera lens seems to be. The shutter just doesn't drop very quickly. It's just not fast enough in my opinion. Even tapping it as fast as I possibly can, you can feel it sort of lagging out sometimes. It just needs work in my opinion. Now that said, a lot of this I reckon is probably software related and hopefully will be tightened up, but it is nice to have access to photosphere and the panoramics. The video camera mode is pretty good. It handles low light very well actually, without introducing too much ISO noise. But the camera app is just so last year, or possibly even the year before, and it just makes you wonder, Google, come on, you can do better than this. In part though, I think a lot of it now is down to Google wanting images to be processed in the web, on its cloud services, rather than on the mobile devices, and so a lot of it they're probably thinking to themselves, why do we need to put a lot of work into our camera app when things like Auto Awesome are phenomenal and can pretty much fix any image. But, you know, it's a pride thing. I would much rather have a really good quality camera app if I've got a reasonably decent camera in there. At the moment, I think we've got a great camera within the Nexus 5, but it's probably being hobbled a little bit by not the best software implementation within the Android camera app. Like I say, softness to the images, it's just a little bit horrible actually. But, you know, I can fix all of that in post-production, bit of Photoshop work, or even uploading to Auto Awesome or using the Snapseed app. But it just would have been nice if the native images just had a little bit more clarity to them, really.